What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today I want to talk to you about the L1 form, what it is and how to use it. Now, if you're a landlord in Ontario and you have a tenant who hasn't been paying rent, chances are you will have served them with an N4 form. Subsequently to this form, you're going to be serving a tenant with an L1 so that you can escalate the matter and take it to the Landlord and Tenant Board. Now, the L1 form comes with a degree of intention, and the intention is that you want to terminate the tenancy and collect rent arrears. Now, before you go about completing this form, there are a few things that you need to make sure that you've done as part of this application. For example, you have to make sure that you have given the tenant an N4 notice and that you're serving the L1 form, or rather filing the L1 form after the elapsed time period. You must also make sure that you have a copy of the N4 that you provided to the tenant, as well as completing a certificate of service. And you also need to make sure that you have all named tenants on the lease as part of your application. Now, these things are all part of the initial instructions, but still make sure that the rental address is correct, including the unit number. And finally, before proceeding, make sure that the math that you're doing is correct so that when you get to filling it out, it is consistent with the documents that you're able to provide. Now, generally speaking, this form is actually pretty straightforward, and they do actually give you some pretty good instructions here to make sure that you as a landlord are filling this form out correctly. But because I know a lot of people don't want to read the instructions, I'm going to point one thing out for you here because this is important and a lot of people mess this up. It tells you on the form to fill out section, or rather part 5 and part 6 first, which has to do with the math that you're doing to make sure that all your calculations are correct so you don't end up starting from the top, doing your math wrong, and then doing the calculations at the end just to find out that you have to redo the form. So let's start off with part 5. Now, in this section, we're going to be inputting all the rents owed as per N4, and you will also be able to update the rents owed as some time will have elapsed since you filed your N4. Now, if you're in arrears more than 3 months, make sure to use the first row to include a larger rent period extending however many months you are in arrears. Then leave the next 2 rows to cover the last 2 months, adding up to the total. Now, moving on to the next section below that, we're looking at a part where it allows us to put in any NSF charges. The NSF charges are in case your tenant gave you a check, it bounced, and then you incurred a fee. You can add that into this section here. And now we're going to move on to part 6, where we are going to add up the rent owed, the NSF fees, and your application fee to give you the grand total. Now that we've done all of our math, we're going to go all the way to the top and start at part 1. Basic information like the rental address, you're going to make sure to fill that out correctly, and hopefully it's going to match your N4. As we move on to part 2, you're going to fill out the total from part 5, and you will include the recent date. And as we move on to part 3, you're going to include your name, the tenant's names, including all tenants' names. And if there isn't enough room on the form to include all the tenants' names, you're going to include another form, which is the schedule of parties, to make sure that you can put everybody's names that are on the lease. Then moving on to part 4, you're going to include details about the current status of the tenancy, including the rent owed, the reason you are applying, and the lease status and the deposit status pertaining to the tenancy. Now, we've already completed parts 5 and 6, so we're going to skip those parts and move on to part 7, which has to do with your personal info, and you're just going to sign. Now, if you've done everything correctly, you should have a hearing date mailed to you, hopefully within about 2 months if everything goes well, and you have an opportunity to present your case. Now, please make sure to verify that you are doing this form correctly and you're filling everything out meticulously, because you don't want to end up getting your hearing date, attending the hearing just to find out that you're getting it dismissed on a clerical error. So make sure to consult with somebody if you don't know how. A few things to note is that there is a $201 filing fee, and if you're e-filing, it's currently $185, but these fees do change year after year, so make sure to stay current with that. Also, make sure not to file this L form for the wrong reasons. If you did file a different N form that wasn't an N4, you will need to file an L2. So if you want to know how to use that, we're going to leave a link for it somewhere here. Make sure to click on it if you want to know how to do that one. In the meantime, if you have any landlord or tenant related questions, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure to email or text us, and we'll be sure to answer any and all questions that come our way. As always, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more LTB matters.